She's a Samaritan. And she thinks this man, he's going to look down on me. Everybody else does. He's bound to. She's, not only is she a Samaritan, she's a woman. And there was an old Jewish prayer at the time. I don't know how often it was used, but it was certainly used enough to have been written down. And it went something like this: "O Lord my God, I thank you that you have not made me a Gentile, nor a dog, nor a woman." And that was the pecking order. Gentiles, not Jewish. Dogs, not human. Women, below. Now, that's prejudice, if ever you saw it. Some of you ladies think that there's a bit of injustice in the world for ladies, and so there is, but it was nothing compared to that sort of misogyny. I know some big words, you see. Woman-hating. But this Samaritan woman, who's had such a rough life, who's had such a hard time, she comes and she thinks, this man is going to look down on me. If he doesn't look down on me, he's going to abuse me. I've never had anything good from any man, and certainly not from a Jewish man. If ever there's a person who needed good news, it's this woman. And whoever you are, and whatever your life has been like, you'll be pleased to know that this woman, who I cannot think of anybody further down the pile of life. I can't think of anybody who is a smaller, lower person. You know, they always say there's always somebody worse off than you are. Well, this is her. She's the woman. She's the one who's worse off. She desperately needs good news. And if Jesus has got good news for her, then let me tell you, he's got good news for you. You are somewhere in the scale of things between Nicodemus, who we saw last week, and this woman. And if Jesus has good news for Nicodemus, and we saw that he did have, and he's got good news for this woman, then if you're in between those two, then he's got good news for you. Here's the good news that he brings to her. First of all, he looks at her and he speaks to her. He doesn't treat her as being somehow subhuman. He doesn't say, oh, you're the bottom of the pile. He speaks to her. And she's surprised at that. She's shocked at that. Let me tell you something. Today, God is trying to speak to you. If you would just pause for a moment and listen. The God who made heaven and earth wants to speak to you. If you'll allow it. She's shocked that this man would want to speak to her, but she doesn't know who he is. She's never met him before. She's not heard of him. She doesn't know who Jesus of Nazareth really is. But here's the next surprise for her. He asks her for help. Could I have a cup of water? Now, most Jews would think that a Samaritan was unclean. They'd certainly think that this woman was unclean, that it was beneath them, that they'd somehow get infected from her. Just touching her, just speaking to her, I might catch something brings this close to her. She probably smells. Oh. Jesus says, can I have a cup of water from you? In other words, you give me something, I'll drink it. You're likely to catch. Are you worried about catching something? Jesus, no, just give me some water, I'll drink it. I want you to help me. This is good news for her. Nobody ever asks for an act of kindness from her. Nobody ever asks her to help them. She's the sort of woman people avoid asking for help from. Suddenly, here's somebody who says, I need you you to serve me with a drink. In other words, I'm willing to put myself more in need than you are. You have something that I don't have. And I'm willing to receive from you. And the woman looks and says, you're asking me for the drink of water? And Jesus says, well, actually, I could give you eternal water. And they get into a very strange conversation. But you see, the thing that makes this good news for her also good news for you is that Jesus invites you to work with him in transforming this world. He couldn't do it himself, but he invites you to work with him in transforming this world. The third thing he does is that he shows her that he knows all about her. The whole of her life, everything she ever did, she says to her friends. Told me everything I ever did. Well, he didn't tell her everything, but he did tell her that she'd been married 5 times. That she's now living with a man who's not her husband. And if somebody knows that much about you, he knows everything about you. And here's a man who knows everything about me. And he's still willing to speak to me. This woman is so depressed. None of her neighbours, nobody else in the town wants to speak to her. But this man, who knows more than her neighbours know, he wants to speak to her. He honours her. He cares for her as she is. He's not like the other men who want something from her, but it's a bit more than a drink of water. No. Here's a man who knows all about her and still cares for her. And he cares for you if you'll let him. And then he does the most extraordinary thing. She begins to talk about the Messiah. She's very embarrassed and she distracts him from the main topic of conversation. She starts to talk about the Messiah. And he says, I, who speak to you, am he. I'm the Messiah. He reveals this to her. Do you know she's the first person that he's told this to? He knows, his mother Mary knows because the angel told him. No one else knows this. Jesus tells her first. The disciples, it's going to be another 2.5 years before they realise, but he reveals it to her. He says, I'm the Messiah, I'm the one you're waiting for. And I've revealed it to you. And here's the good news. He wants to reveal himself as Messiah to you. God's anointed, the one who comes to bring you to God. Will you accept it? Will you respond? She went off and told all her neighbours and said, now I believe in this man. I invite you this morning to believe in Jesus. You can make that step, demonstrate it by being baptized. If at home you want to know how you can do that, email me, david@gbchurch.co.uk. I'll put you in touch with somebody who can get you baptized so that you can believe. Thank you for